Hey everybody, it's Valerie with J&S Hobbies and Crafts. Another free step-by-step tutorial for you on this beautiful Winter's Eve mini album. So I'm here to do the review of everything that's inside of it, and I hope you enjoy it. So you ready? Let's get started, okay? This is a 8.5 by 6.5 cover. It has a 3.5 inch spine with a beautiful Tim Holtz ornate plate on it. And some gorgeous, gorgeous lace. I hope you can actually see that lace. The clasp is a little piece of pink ribbon, and it also has some of my cute little flowers on the back. So this paper is a lot of pastels and a couple of dark rich greens and some rich dark ruby reds inside of it. So you ready? Let's get started. Okay. So this is page 1, and it opens up with cute little tabs on it, and you can see that we have one says Joy to the World, and if you prefer you can actually flip it over and do Silent Night, so it's kind of up to you. Let me zoom back out. I used the gorgeous Desire Victoria die, and that's what these are made out of, with some beautiful white peacock paper. And comes open, has a little magnet here. This comes open, and then there's a little floating mat, so you have places to put pictures, and you can put that little guy in there too. So, and this is also held together with a magnet. Over to page 2, I've got some of my poinsettias. This opens up, has a magnet on it as well, and we've got mats here with another beautiful Victoria die, some pearls and bling. And then you've also got another pocket over here, as you can see, with some beautiful pearl trim and lots of mats. Now, of course, we could put a lot more mats in some of these pockets, but I didn't take time to make as many as you could make to put in yours. So let's get that put away. Okay, we're going on to page 3. Page 3 is pretty simple. It has a poinsettia and a little tag that I tucked underneath of the poinsettia, okay? Because page 4 is super cool. So I designed these little presents, and inside of them you've got some cards. So you can take one card out and you can take the other card out, okay? And then they open up and you can put pictures on the back of them. And then over here, you've got another beautiful pocket, okay, with some mats in them. And these are 5 by 7. One of these is a 5 by 7. And then you've got this cute little card right here where you can put some journaling. So you could probably get maybe 3 cards in each of these little slide presents. So I only put one in, but there is plenty of room. As you can see, this is really loose in here, so you could put quite, and these are all set up as magnets as well. Turn to page 5, and we've got this little piece, and this opens up, and it's got a pocket right here with a little card in it. And the nice thing about using white mats is that you can journal on the other side and put a picture on this side, or just one or the other. Beautiful place for a picture here. There's lots of stickles, so they're really, really shiny. I use diamond stickles on them. Let's turn this over here. You've got another little place to put cards here, and you can also put pictures. So there's mats there. And then there's all kinds of mats in here. So we've got several mats that match this next page. Okay, so put that back in here, and again you can put pictures on the back, and there's this will fit up to 5 by 7s. This is page 6, I'm sorry, page 6, and it's got a place back here also with another pull out mat with beautiful Heartfelt Creations die on that. And then this opens up to reveal flap with a little pocket. I forgot to put something in there, but you can put a small card up in here. Move this up here, so you have a place to put another card up there. And then there's a place for a picture here. This opens up with a magnet. Picture here, picture here, picture here, and picture here. So lots of places. I'm going to guess that you could get a couple of small 3x4s or 4x6 in there. Okay? And this just ties together with this cute little pink ribbon. 7 and 8 are deep pockets, so you've got place back here and another pocket right here. That's a 4x6. Again with some beautiful poinsettias. And another pocket here. Lots of room for 4x6s. Could probably stick some 5x7s back there. I'm always getting caught on my little curls. And then another pocket here again, 4x6, sideways, and then a little journaling card that's tucked into here. Okay. Next page. Let's see if I can get this to sit up. This is a little bow, and it's attached. Open this up, and you've got a place for a picture in here. And you could also put some floating mats in here if you'd like. I think you could probably get at least a couple of them in there. And this folds up kind of like a box top. I'll go ahead and close that later. And then this opens up, and you've got another place for pictures up here and journaling. Bring it back down, and you've got another pocket behind here with mats. Okay, another place for a little journal card with some beautiful lace, and another one of those little poinsettias right here. Bow back. There you go. This page is kind of a little, looks like it's all one picture, but it has poinsettia, and with a magnet you can open it up, and you have a huge space for pictures here, and a slender pocket over here to put some journaling cards. And then the last 2 pages, we've got a cute little, it's called a belly band, a pocket belly band. So behind here are mats, and then there's a front pocket and a back pocket. So there's the belly band, and then there's a pocket here, and then there's a pocket here, and then I even matched some of the little sayings on this. You put this behind it, belly band, and then it catches right down here. Okay, and the last page has the same window that the front page has, except you're looking outside at the back page, and on the front window on the front of the cover you're looking inside. So I have this cute little curtain and some poinsettias, and then this adorable little Christmas book that I made. Let me just kind of set this aside so you can see. It's got one of my little baby poinsettias on it, and you can open it up and you can journal in it, or if you have one of those cute little Polaroid cameras that they make now, you should be able to cut them down and fit them in this little tiny book. And it just sits right inside this little window. And then behind it I have 2 5x7s that are made to fit perfectly inside of this little pocket right here. So that is our Winters Eve Christmas album. Let's get started making our step-by-step book together, okay? So today's mini album is going to be made out of the new Heartfelt Creations Winters Eve collection. And this paper is so different from the last Christmas album I just finished. It's got a whole new color palette in it. So let's take a look. You've got pastels and deep rich greens and some kind of turquoises, and there's cabins and candlelight and angels and Christmas trees. It is really, really, really pretty. Sorry about all the moving around. I got fans blowing. We've got some more of that foiled paper, a lot of pastels. We've got windows with lace, deers, rich reds, pastel blues, pinks. It is stunning. So, are you looking forward to this as much as I am? Let's get started with our materials list. To create the poinsettias, we'll be using our Heartfelt Creations Sparkling Poinsettia die and stamp. The die number is HCD1766. And the stamp is HCPC3680. To create our little window box, and this is just a demo, the window box part, we'll be using the new Heartfelt Creations window box elements. And this comes with the little window box that you can put together, a little trim for it, and this is the piece that goes on the top. And then you have these little lacy pieces so you can put it all together. And the little lacy pieces look like this. Oops, I'm all caught up. Excuse me. So these are the little lace pieces, and this is the other one. Okay, so that's what those look like when they're cut out. To create the window and the window frame, we'll be using our window frame Heartfelt Creations die, number HCD17148. We'll also be using the candle die as well. And this is what they look like when they're cut out. I haven't cut the candle out yet, but we'll do that later. To create our tiny little flowers for our flower box, we'll be using this Fisker's small flower punch. We'll be doubling them up and then inking them. And to make the stems, I decided to use these assorted flower stamens to do the different stems and the stamens in the middle of the flowers. To embellish our flowers, we'll be using glossy accents, diamond stickles, silver stickles. To create that snow effect, we'll be using our crystal clear. To shape the flowers, I'll be using the Flower Shaping Essentials Kit, HCST2-406. To ink my flowers, I will be using Heartfelt Creations Stack and Store Daubers. I also have the stack of 30. The pigments I used for my flowers: Memento Rosebud, Colorbox Shabby Pink, Colorbox Ocean, Colorbox Sky Blue, Colorbox Willow, Colorbox Citrine, and Colorbox Silver. The prills I used in my flowers were white, and I used lemon chiffon. As a closure for my mini album, I'll be using Dritz Extra Large Hook and Eyes, and this one I'm using nickel plated. And of course, we got to use our silver bling on a roll. To get that 3D effect on our cover and some places inside of our mini album, we'll be using these Zots singles. These are really cool because they are literally little single individual Zots. We are going to use this beautiful scalloped Rochelle lace, and this is 2 1/4 inch. For the side plate on our spine, we're going to be using the Tim Holtz ornate plates. To trim our pages and borders, we'll be using Heartfelt Creations Delicate Border Basics, HCD17118, Classic Border Heartfelt Creations HCD17119, the Desire metal die called Victoria, and this is what it looks like. Isn't that gorgeous? Imagine a beautiful little gatefold with these. And these ornate borders and pockets are stunning. We're also going to be using these HCD1780. To clean out my dies, I absolutely love this. This is a tool-in-one by Spellbinders, and this little brush is amazing. So I know I talk about it all the time, but if you don't have one, you need to get one. It has a little scoop to help you get those little pesky edges out, and then inside there's a little pin to help you get the little teeny pieces out if the brush doesn't work. But it very rarely ever gives me a bad time. Usually less than 30 seconds I can clean out one of my dies. I'll be using the white peacock specialty paper. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really pretty. We'll be using white one 10-pound Coordinations cardstock, and this is a value pack as well. For my flowers, I used the Coordinations 65-pound cardstock. This is our value pack of 12 by 12. You'll also be needing some Tyvek. We use this to put our skeleton together, and one envelope is enough to make multiple albums. You'll be needing 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard black. These are 12 by 12. We sell these individually by the piece, and we also have a value pack, which is well worth getting. We're going to be using these magnets. These are really cool. They're very tiny. As you can see, this is just 2. So they come in a pack of 10, and you'll need at least 1 pack. Okay? I'm going to be using 1/4-inch score tape, art glitter glue with an added metal tip. Some of the other things you might want to have is a scoreboard, a craft knife. I have some fussy cut scissors, my regular scissors, a ruler, a pencil, and optional, you can get a glue gun to hot glue some of your flowers inside. Alright, so let's get started making our skeleton for our album. First of all, you're going to need 2 pieces of black 12 by 12 chipboard. Take your first one and measure over 8.5 inches and cut. Okay, so this is what you should have. Go ahead and set this aside for a second. Turn this to the landscape, measure over 6.5 inches, and cut. Okay, so this is what you should have. This is one of the cover, either the cover or the back. And then go ahead and put this in your reserve for another project. Take your second piece and do the exact same thing. We're going to measure over 8.5 inches and cut. This is what you should have. Go ahead and set this aside. Turn this one to the landscape, measure over 6.5 inches, and cut. This is what you should have. Here's your second piece. It's exactly the same size as the first piece. Go ahead and put this away for another project. Now, go ahead and get one of these pieces, the smaller pieces. This is 3.5 inches across. Put one of them in your pile for another project. And take this one, turn it this way, measure 8.5 inches, and cut. This is what you should have. This little piece can go in a project pile. So this is what you should have when you're done. You should have front, spine, back, or if you prefer, back, spine, front. Each piece is 8.5 by 6.5 and 8.5 by 3.5. So we're going to be using our white cardstock to cover our chipboard pieces. So you'll need to get 3 pieces out. And go ahead and cut those 3 pieces down to 10.5, 2 of them to 10.5 by 8.5. So 10.5 by 8.5. 2 pieces, okay? And then the third one, cut it to 10.5 by 5.5, okay? So that'll cover up our binder. Take your scraps and put them in your stockpile. Now, before I get too much further, I want to explain the stockpile versus the reserve pile. Whenever you cut anything out of your white cardstock, we put that in a pile called the stockpile. We'll be using it throughout the process. And some of the remnants you can use for your mats later. There's a reserve pile, so when you start cutting your pretty paper, you're going to put that in a reserve pile. And we'll be using that throughout the process as well. Sometimes you'll just set stuff aside. Make sure that you set your stuff aside in a separate pile so you don't accidentally use it, okay? So let's get started covering our album pieces. Go ahead and get your first piece of 10.5 by 8.5 paper and set one of your 8.5 by 6.5 pieces of chipboard in the center of it. It doesn't have to be exactly centered, but eyeball it as close as you can. What you want to do is you want to take your fingers and fold up the bottom, turn it around, make sure it stays up flush around like that, and fold up the bottom of the second piece, okay? And then we're going to open it up, fold the sides, turn it around, and fold the other side, just like that. Okay, so once you have it all folded, you're going to notice that right in the corner you have like a little square right here. What we're going to do is get your scissors, and you're going to cut across this little corner right here, but leave just a tiny bit, so don't cut into the corner this direction. You want to cut right in this way. Okay, So take your scissors and just cut across. Now you're going to do that on all 4 corners. And we're going to do the same thing for the other cover as well as the spine, okay? We're not going to keep these little pieces. You can go ahead and throw these away. Okay, so you're going to get your score tape out and one of your chipboards that you cut down, and you're going to go ahead and make a frame all the way around with the score tape. As you can see, I'm having a hard time finding my end, sorry. So go ahead and make a frame all the way around. Keep it close to the edges as you can. Okay. And then you want to go down one side, make sure that this stays on nice and secure. Down the other side. Okay. Down the middle. Mine get a little crooked, I apologize. Down the middle. Okay, just like that. Make sure that your score tape is on nice and snug. I always use the back of my craft knife. You can use your scoring tool. It's up to you, whichever you prefer. Okay? And then go ahead and peel off the backing. This is another thing the craft knife is really good for, is you can just grab the edges. Get that backing off. Get all the backing off of your score tape. Okay, so once you get the backing off your score tape, go ahead and bring over the piece that we just folded. And what you want to do is place this evenly within these score lines that you made. So be careful. Try to get in there as close as you can. Sometimes I just take this part and I fold it up and kind of bump it up against it. And then you kind of have to view the bottom and the top. Alright? Press it in there nice and solid. Now one thing you need to be really careful of, and especially when you're using white, is that your desktop is clean, okay? So you might want to make sure that everything's off your desktop, and I probably should Windex mine down, but press this all nice and tight in there, okay? Just like that. Okay, so now go ahead and get your score tape, and we're going to put a frame all the way around here. Now, if you can't get the frame all the way around, you can just cut these off. If you want to put a piece of score tape right along this edge up against your chipboard, okay? If anything hangs over, you'll need to make sure that you get that cut off. It's really important that you don't have any loose pieces of score tape over the edges. And then once you're done with the frame that's close to the edge, you want to go ahead and do these edges. Okay, and I apologize if you can hear a bunch of banging next door, but the guys are cleaning the warehouse, so there's all kinds of things going on over there. Alright, so let's get this little frame here. We're basically just framing out all the white pieces that are showing. Okay. Again, try not to get any score tape over the edge. If you do, you'll need to clip it off. Okay. If you go over the piece of your other score tape, it's not a big deal. Almost done. Alright, so I know I see a little piece right here that I need to clip off. Everything else looks pretty good. Make sure your score tape is down nice and snug. Like I said, you can use your craft knife, the back of your craft knife, or you can use your scoring tool. Whatever works for you. Just make sure you get it all down nice and tight, and then go ahead and pull the backing off of your score tape. Alright, a couple of little pieces get kind of sticking up in the air. So, go ahead and push up nice and firm, right in the center first, and then push it down, okay? I'm going to turn it around, take the bottom, which is now was the top, do the same thing, press it down, turn it sideways, go ahead and press this down, and turn the other one way around, and get this one pushed on. Sometimes I actually take and use the tabletop. I don't know if you saw what I did, but I just kind of clicked and folded over and pressed it down. So this is what you should have. Now you're going to go ahead and do that to the other 2 pieces of chipboard that we cut out. Your other 8.5 by 6.5 and your spine. Okay? Okay, so this is what you should have. Looks just like this. When you turn them over, they're covered in white. Okay? So let's go ahead and get your Tyvek out, and I want you to cut 2 strips that are 1.5 by 8 inches. I'm going to cut mine. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what you should have, 1.5 by 8. Go ahead and get your scoreboard out. Go ahead and put this right up against the edge. Should measure 1.5. Go ahead and score it right down the middle at 3/4 of an inch. Now you might have to hold it because it's a little tricky and it can get a little out of control. Do this to both pieces. So let's go ahead and fold this, leaving the peaks up. I apologize, things are going to move around. I've got my fans blowing, and I had to turn my big fan off because apparently it was kind of noisy for people. So I'm doing the best I can in the heat. All right, so go ahead and get your score tape out. Now this is peak up, so you can see peak up. Okay. And I realize you have to turn around and flatten it again, but that's okay. So take your score tape, and you want to lay a piece of score tape right on the right hand side of the score that you made to fold. Do not get the score tape on your fold, okay? So just run it right down the side, just to the right of that fold. Okay? And then go ahead and put another piece right along the right edge. Do not go over the edge. If you do, you have to make sure that you cut it all off, just like we did with the other project. Okay? So, mine curls up a little bit. Now on the other side, I'm just going to turn it around. So my score tape's on this side now. You're going to do the same thing. Take a piece of score tape, just go to the right hand side of the score. Okay, and one right along the right edge. So basically, even though I have 2 rights, it's because I turned my piece of Tyvek around to make it easier for me. Okay? Now make sure you don't have anything on your edges, no little peek overs. Okay? I didn't get mine scored exactly down the middle, but it's close enough. I told you that little thing was going to be hard to do. Okay, so this is what you should have. Go ahead and do the other piece exactly the same. Okay, so once again, make sure you don't have anything peeking over the edges. It looks like my edges are all nice and crisp. Okay. Fold them again. Okay, so go ahead and get your spine out and your ruler. Now, this is 8.5 inches and these are 8. So you want to make a mark, a 1/4 inch, at a 1/4 inch right here on the side of your spine, on the inside, okay? And you want to make the other one at 8 1/4. okay? So make a little pencil mark at 1/4 inch and 8 1/4 inch. I'm going to do this on both sides because I'm going to be placing the Tyvek on both sides. So 8 or 1/4 and 8 1/4, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and bring back one of my larger pieces that I covered. Okay. You want to take off one side of the score tape backing off one side of this piece we just made. Now, technically, the spine and back, even though that's probably not going to be the back, but doesn't really matter. Okay, so you got your score tape down. Now you are peak this way, opening this way, okay? Like I told you, mine is not folded straight, so I scored a little off, so don't worry about it, okay? Place your score tape, place your Tyvek so the bottom is sitting right at that little mark you made, okay? Just give it a little tap down the side, right up against the side of your spine, okay? Make sure it's down nice and snug. Okay. So, looks like that. And I know it's hard white on white, huh? Let me zoom in. So, the opening is over here. Now, we're going to take off the other 2 strips of score tape backing. Okay, now be very careful. Do not lean this over just yet. Push your spine right up against one of your 8.5 by 6.5 pieces of chipboard. Okay. Make sure that it's even from the top. Make sure it's even at the top and at the bottom. Okay. Push it tight this way. Push your Tyvek over in the center and press it down. Okay? So this is what you should have as a hinge. Okay? Now we're going to do the other one the same way. So go ahead and get the score tape off the back of your other Tyvek hinge on one side only. Okay? Now this time your peak is on the right and your opening is on the left. Okay, this side is, the score tape has still got its backing on it. Press it right on that little mark you made, just to give it a little start. This right side, now mine's giving me a little bit of a problem. Okay, now I got mine a little bit crooked, but you know what, it's okay. I'm going to place it down with my bone folder. Okay. And we're going to be covering this, so if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Take the score taping back off the other side. Okay. Once again, take your other 8.5 by 6.5 piece that we covered. Press it evenly. Okay, right next to it, press it in. Fold your Tyvek over and press it down. Make sure it's nice and tight. Okay? There you go. Now never bend it backwards, okay? If you bend it backwards, you're going to break your album. So you don't ever want to bend it backwards. You can always bend it this way, okay? There we go. So now I want you to go ahead and cut 2 strips of your white cardstock that are 2 inches by 8 1/4. So 2 inches by 8 1/4. Okay? Once again, get your scoreboard out. Place the first strip lengthwise this way, and we're going to score at 1 inch. Lightly. Okay? Don't score really hard. Little trick about scoring, you want to always be very careful that you don't press too hard. Especially when you're doing things like this with the cardstock, because if you press too hard, you'll actually cut the paper. And if you have a new scoreboard, be careful that your scoring tool doesn't have any sharp edges, okay? So, once again, score these two at 1 inch and score lightly. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing with these that we did with the Tyvek. Go ahead and fold them, peek up. Okay, peek up. Put your score tape down the right side of the score line that you just made, your fold. Do not touch your fold. Make sure you don't go over the edges. This is exactly the same as we did the other one. Put a piece on the right hand edge. And one down the middle between them. And do the same thing on the other side. One to the left of the score mark that you made in the fold. Do not touch the fold. One down the left-hand side of the piece, close to the edge, don't go over. And one down the middle between them. Go ahead and score tape up the other one exactly the same way. Make sure that you cut off anything that's over the edges. Okay. Secure your score tape down. Go ahead and get your album out. And like we did before, we're going to turn it. Take our ruler, and you're going to make a mark 1/8 of an inch. Okay? So 1/8 of an inch and 8 3/8 on both sides. Okay? I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch in. I apologize. It should be 1/8 of an inch from this end and 1/8 of an inch from this end. So go ahead and take the backing off of one side. Alright, so I'm going to start on my right. This is the side that has the score tape backing taken off. Peak, opening, okay? I'm going to place it right on the little mark that I made down here. Give it a little push, and you want to run this fold on the right side of this score mark on your Tyvek. So don't go over. Just run it right along the edge. And the cool thing about the score tape, to be honest with you, is that if you get it stuck to it, it actually peels up pretty neatly. Okay, so go ahead and press this down. Make sure it's nice and tight on there, okay? Now you can go ahead and pull the score tape off the back of the other side. Okay. Push it over in the middle. Press down and press up. Okay? There you go. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Take 1/2 of your score tape off of the other one we prepared. My little mark is right here, okay? So I'm going to put it, now, peak, opening, peak, opening. Again, right on my little mark, right on the right-hand side. Press it down. Right on the right, press it down. You'll want to use your score tool, that's fine. Okay, now take off the other half of the score tape. Backing. Alright, in the middle, push over and down. And there you go. Once again, never fold it backwards or you'll break it. Earlier when you cut your spine cover, you should have had a piece of reserve about this, like this. 11 by 3. We're going to cover the spine with this piece. the black part. And the only reason I do that is because sometimes when you put your pages in, if you get a little bit away and you don't butt them up against each other, this black is going to show through. And since we covered the whole thing in white, I might as well make sure that that doesn't happen. Actually, what I want you to do is just take it, lay it down so that it's flush at the top with your piece of cover that you just put over your Tyvek. So let me zoom in. Okay, so you want this piece to be flush with the Tyvek covers that we just made at the top, okay? Come down to the bottom and make a little mark so that it's flush with the bottom one too. And go ahead and cut that piece. I'll be right back. So this is what you should have. I'm going to put this piece in my stockpile. And this piece should be the exact same length of the two pieces of Tyvek cover that we just made. Go ahead and put score tape on this. Make a frame. Now this is going to have your pages attached to it. So the hinges are going to be attached to the top of this. So you want to make sure this has sufficient amount of score tape on it so that it doesn't pull your pages out. Okay, so I am going to go all the way around in a frame. And I'm going to go several times down the middle. So I'm going to go really close to the edge here. Oops, I ran out of score tape. I'm going to go get some more, hang on. Nice when it's at your fingertips, huh? Okay. Again, we're putting it on heavy because this is the piece that all of your hinged pages are going to be attached to, okay? Make sure it's down nice and secure. Pull the backing off. Okay, so I'm just going to place this evenly between the two scored areas, flush with the bottom of my score tape, or I mean my Tyvek covering, and place it down, making sure that it's on there nice and tight. And I am going to use my scoring tool to make sure that it's all down nice and snug, okay? So now, just in case you get your pages slightly apart, you won't have any black showing between them, okay? And these will be covered later. So, this is what you should have, okay? There you go. Time to cut our pages. Okay, so get out 5 pieces of your cardstock, and you're going to cut each one 6 7/8 across and cut. So, cut each one of these 5 pieces 6 7/8 and cut. Okay, so you have 5 pieces that are 6 7/8 this direction. Still, they're still 8 1/2 this way. Take the pieces that you cut, these other 5 pieces, and put these back in your stockpile for later. Pieces that you just cut, and I want you to measure over 8 1/4 and cut each one of these. Okay, so this is what you should have. 5 pieces that are all 8 1/4 by 6 7/8. Okay? Okay, so we are going to score with it on the 6 7/8 side across the top. They're going to score each one at 6 1/4. Now, do not score so heavily that you cut your paper, okay? So take each one and score at 6 1/4 on all 5. Now, the reason we're doing the 5 pages with a little wider border is it's going to give us the opportunity to create larger pages with more folds and things like that. If your spines in between are so small, you can't create a lot of bulk because they won't fold together properly. So on one of these, just one of these, I want you to trim off 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so get your get your ruler out and mark at 1/8 of an inch and go ahead and cut off 1/8 of an inch on one of these, just one of these pages we just scored. So on the scored side, you can see the score, just trim off 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm gonna go trim mine. I'll be right back. So trim down, this one should be 6 3/4, just one, okay? Just one of these. You trimmed off the hinge side 1/8 of an inch. So I just shrimped this off. I'm gonna throw this away. Okay, so now I want you to take all your pages, including the one we just trimmed, and fold on the score line. Okay? I'm going to set the one that's shorter aside from the other ones. So go ahead and fold all your pieces. Okay, so now with the hinge facing down, you're going to put a piece of score tape right along the edge on the right hand side of the fold right here, and one right along the outside edge, okay? So take your score tape. So this is what you're going to do on each one. You're going to make sure that you have a score tape just to the right of the fold, and then one along the edge. Do that on all 5 pieces. The shorter one, it definitely will overlap, so don't worry. Okay, let's get all 5 pieces score taped up. Okay, it's very important that you make sure that all of your score tape is down nice and tight. So run your scoring tool or the back of your craft knife or whatever you use nice along the edges of every one of these. Make sure that it's on there nice and tight. If these don't go in right, your pages possibly will come out, okay? So you want to make sure that everything's down. This is the smaller one, by the way. All right, so let's start with the one that you cut the 1/8 of an inch off. Okay, go ahead and get the backing of your score tape off your score tape. Okay. Bring your album back over. Now, this is where I don't want you to get confused. Your spine is right here. This fold right here that you can see me folding, this is the line that I want you to put this smaller hinged one that we cut down right up against. So, in other words, it's going to go right up against your actual cover spine, okay? So you're going to place this piece on the right hand side. So basically, if it makes it any easier for you, sometimes it is for me, I can take this hinge is on this side, okay? And you can place it right up against the fold, but not over the fold. And it should line up perfectly with your little cover up on the top and the bottom. So that's how you'll know. And because we put that piece down the middle that's the same length, it's going to be easier for you to place your pages in this album because they're going to match up top and bottom with that piece. So I have my piece right here, okay? Again, you want to make sure that this is in really tight and snug. So using your bone folder, go ahead and go along the edges, okay? Fold it over, and there's your first page. Now I have a little more at the bottom than I do at the top, but that's okay because it's going to be that way all the way across. So get your next page, take off the backing off of your score tape, peel that off, hinge on this side. Once again, place it right up against the back of the fold of the one you just placed in, even at the top and the bottom with the centerpiece we put on. This is where I was telling you that if we had the black background and you got like your hinges too far apart, a little bit of black would show up. So I'm going to place that down nice and neat, fold it over, right there. See, now if I didn't have that white, maybe a little bit of black would be poking through here. Okay, so this one should meet up evenly with this first one you put in. Get the score tape off the back of the rest of the pages and place them in. page 3. Just keep doing each page, okay? Right up against the other ones. Exactly the same all the way across. And this is the last one. Now this hinging system is going to allow me to have a little bit more room, like I said, to do more things with it. Now you can see that there's a little bit larger gap back here, but that's going to give you the opportunity to really do a lot of fun things with it. So, okay, so this is what you should have, okay? 5 pages with 1/2 inch in between each one. See? The back one's going to be a little wider, which is okay because we can really put something really fancy in the back that way. All right. Okay, so we're going to start decorating our cover, but we're only going to do a portion of it, and here is why. I have a lot of flowers that I want to put on the front, and I also want to put that little window box that you know we're going to be putting on, and this is just a sample of it, okay? This is not the finished version, but it sticks out about 1/2 inch. So when this is on the front and you start to put your pages in, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on it, and I don't want to do that. So as usual, I am going to be making mine cover embellishments. I'm sorry, I'm going to do my cover embellishments later, but we will, however, put on the paper, put on the spine, put on the back, and the hinge, and so that can dry, and then later on we'll put everything else on, okay? All right, so in your paper pad, you want to look for this piece. It's got the pretty little pink poinsettias on the corners, and on the other side it's a very deep, rich green. Go ahead and cut the tab off the top and throw it away. Okay, so now what I'd like for you to do, facing this direction, your poinsettias top right, top or bottom right, top left, measure over 6 inches and cut. Okay, this is what you should have. So I want this half to be on the front, and I want this half to be on the back. So what I need you to do is take this piece and turn it around so that both of your poinsettias are on the bottom right corner. Put them together, turn this way, so look at your pieces, measure over 8 3/8 and cut. Okay, so this is what you should have. These 2 small pieces that are green on the back like this, and the little poinsettias, these you have to put to the side. We are going to use this side to cut out our window box and our windows, okay? So our window box will fit perfectly on here, and then this is just a temporary cutout to show you that the window will fit on here. So do not put these in your reserve. And if you want to make sure, take a Post-it. Let me get one, okay? Don't use. All right, so I'm going to put these in my side pile. Okay? Okay, so this is what you should have. This is your cover. Turn this way, and this is your back. So set your back aside for a minute. Go ahead and get your album. To make sure that you have the cover, you're going to have a larger gap on this right side. This is the front. Set it down. Okay, you can go ahead and open it up. All right, and this is going to be placed evenly to the right, okay? So right here you're going to have about a 1/2 inch gap. That's fine because we're going to cover it with the spine material. So you want to, and for me, before I even place it down, I go ahead and mark. So basically all I'm doing is I'm just making a little mark in each of the corners, just kind of to guide me when I set it down. So I don't know, you can barely see them and I don't want them to be dark, but I just put a little corner mark here and a little corner mark there. So we're going to go ahead and put score tape on the back. So set it aside for a second, grab your score tape. Okay, goes on the back, on the green part, okay? Make a frame, just like we've done before. It's really important that we put a lot of score tape on the covers and things because it's going to have a lot of, I don't want to call it heavy embellishments, but you know, flowers and the flower box and the all that kind of stuff, and the hinge. So you want to double up on the sides. Okay, so double up on the sides, and then about every inch or so you're going to place another piece. So it's a little heavier score tape for the front. Get it all on there. Make sure you put it down nice and tight with your scoring tool or whatever it is that you use to keep it nice and tight. Get everything down. You're going to go ahead and pull off the backing of your score tape and get ready to put it on your cover, okay? So, I'm going to pull off my score tape backing and I'll be right back. Alright, so the score tape backing is off. Bring your album back over. Cover is on the right when it's laying flat like this. Again, clarifying with you that the larger part is going to go to the back. So, take your piece, poinsettias bottom right corner, and line them up with your little hashtags that you made on your cover. Make sure it's straight. I've got about 1/16 of an inch all the way around. Hopefully it's laid all nice and straight. And I apologize if you hear a bunch of noise. The guys are doing a lot of work, and I say this frequently, but today I have workers outside cutting up cement in the parking lot, so you may hear a lot of banging. All right, let's go ahead and score tape the back piece. Again, frame, a little extra on the edges. I'm going to score mine up and I'll be right back. So this is how I did the back. And once again, I did put a little extra along the edges because there will be the back half of the clasp back there with an embellishment on it. And you don't want it to bow and come away from your book, so you want to make sure that you get sufficient amount on it. And then go ahead and pull the score tape backing off, and we'll get ready to put this on the back of our album. Alright, so I, silly me, forgot to make my little marks. Since I have my score tape backing off already, I'm just going to use the other side for just a quick second, and I apologize if I get my head in there. I'm just making some really quick little marks. Alright, so sorry about that. Now this time I want my poinsettias in the top left corner, alright? So we're going to place our back on. And again, if I get my head in the picture, I am really, really sorry. But it's almost impossible not to sometimes. Alright. Make sure they're both down nice and snug. Okay, sometimes you can actually take the soft side of your ruler and just press. Make sure everything's on there nice and tight. If you want to erase your little pencil marks, you can. Be careful again. Remember, we have white paper, so you want to be really careful that you don't get your edges all dirty of your album. Okay? So now on to the spine. Okay, in your paper pad, you're locating this page. It's light blue on one side, and on the other side it has this piece with the, looks like a kind of a barn side with the two windows and everything. So we are going to, I'm sorry, first of all, go ahead and cut off your tab and throw it away. With your paper facing you, with the pictures on the one side and the blue on the other, I want you to turn it this way, measure over 5.5 inches, and cut. This is what you should have. I want you to take this piece and put it in your reserve pile. Now on this piece, we're going to go ahead and turn it. It doesn't really matter. Let's turn it this way, okay? And you're going to measure over 8 3/8 and cut. All right, so this is what you should have. We're going to keep this piece, go ahead and turn it over to the blue side. Take this one with the little deer and put it in your reserve. So this is going to be your spine, and it's going to go on here and wrap both ways. So we need to make some score marks, okay? Okay, so we're going to score, and I make little marks sometimes. It just makes it easier for me. We're going to score at 3/4 lightly, okay? 3/4 and 4 3/4. Again, do not score heavily, all right? Okay, so now that we scored this, I'm going to give it a little bend. The blue goes to the outside, so you want to bend in just a little bit. I'm not going to like run my folding tool along the edges. I just want a slight bend. I'm going to get my album on the spine, just double check, and it should fit nicely. Okay, so when we're putting this on, we're actually going to start at one side and work our way to the other side. And I always score mine a little further to the left and a little further to the right on the other side because of the way that it folds around. So it should be meeting the far right side of the back on this fold. And when you bring it around this way, it should be meeting the far left side of the back of this, the score mark. So let's go ahead and put our score tape on. Now, once again, you do not put score tape over the folds. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side of the score mark over here. And it's going to be a little hard to see because this paper is so light that you may have a little trouble seeing your score line. So put one there and then one on the outer edge, to the far edge. Don't go over. If you do, make sure you clip it all off. Okay. I'm going to turn it around. Now my score tape, my first one's on that side. I'm on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put score tape to the left of the score line I made and not on it. Okay. And I apologize if I get my head in here. I don't always look up to see what's being shown. So, okay, and then to the right side of the score line. Okay. Over here to the left side of the score line. Okay. And a few down the middle. Now, nothing really heavy goes on the spine usually, but this again is to keep it from bowing, coming apart. So, and I'm going to have to clip off ends. So get my scissors. Get all those little ends off. See those little things that are poking over? You don't want those. Half the time I leave it on my scissors. Okay. Make sure everything is down nice and tight. And then I'm going to take off the backing. And to be safe, oh, I'm so sorry about that noise. So I took off one side on the score tape, and I am on the front side of my album, okay? So this is the front, this is the back. The side that has the score tape taken off of it right here, okay? I want to place it so that the fold, so what I'm gonna do, I'll show you. I hope I can explain this. I'm holding it back here. But first of all, you want to make sure that you're lined up straight so that when you place this down, it's going to have the score fold right along this side. And then this top piece here, okay, and this matches, sorry, this matches with this. So I'm going to be really careful and just tap it. Bring it down here, okay, right along the edge. Okay, we're going to be putting lace along this edge, so if it's off a teeny bit, please don't freak out. Okay, so that's just the first piece on the front. Okay, now I'm going to peel off the next piece of score tape next to where I've attached it. Hold your album open, like about that, okay? Press from the back this way. Okay, so I'm just going to press straight over. Okay, and you want to take each one off. I learned the hard way. I took all my score tape off at one time, and I pressed it on crooked. And I had to find a way to get it back off. So I have not done that since, because I take it a little bit at a time. So I took the next piece off. I'm going to press it. Now, if you feel comfortable enough to take off all of your score tape at one time, you go for it. I am not going to take that chance again of messing it up. So, and where it will be really important that it's open the right way is when you get to the end, because if you don't take it off right, you could have problems. So I'm taking off the next piece. I'm actually going to take the next two off, right up to the next score mark, on the next two to the left of the score mark. Keeping that flat, keeping that on there. Okay, so now, this last piece, I'm going to take the score tape backing off. I'm going to keep it like this, hold it tight, and I'm going to take the palm and go right in the middle and curve it around, okay? So you know what I'm doing. So I'm basically going to press the center with my back half of my hand right here. Okay, so I got to hold on tight. Take my hand, bring it around. Okay. Once again, if you get a little bubble or something, remember that we're putting lace on it. So I'm going to open up my album, press this down first. Okay, so now I should be able to open my album up, flatten it. This one turned out perfect. This one's a little off. That's okay. I'm just pressing down my score tape. This one's a little bigger. It's okay. Don't worry about it. All right. Bring it back. All right. See? All right. So we got everything on. I'd like for you to go and get some of your lace. We're going to use this lace. Okay? And because I have so much going on the cover, I'm actually going to take the lace this direction. And I'm going to be placing it so that let me zoom in. This is so light that it's going to be hard to tell. Okay, so you can see my placement. I just threw a punch underneath here to keep it flat for you. I'm going to be putting my lace right along the edge here. So these little humps are going to go just past the blue border we just put on, okay? So I'm literally just going to, I know it's really hard for you guys to see, whoops, and it's hard to tell, but the blue border is like 3/4 of an inch over. So this lace and these little holes, you're going to just see the tip of the blue border. So this is going to be on this side, and then this is going to wrap around on the other side, okay? So I'm going to measure it and cut. I'm going to cut right between this little guy and the next one. So my scissors, show you what I'm cutting right here. Here, let me move this out of the way. See it? I have half of it, half of one of these cut off right here. But if I cut right between the half of this one, it's not going to be long enough. Right to the right of that little loop-de-loop. So this is what I have, okay? All right. This is my little secret. So I sometimes don't always get my lace on the way it should. So I found a little secret. I run a piece of score tape. I lay my lace down on the score tape, and then I glue down the tips. So be very, very, very careful. Measure out a piece of score tape. Don't get your score tape on your album before you're ready, because you'll have to pull it off, and that won't be fun. So right about there. Okay, so I ran a piece of score tape. I did not extend the blue paper. Okay, pull the backing off. This has been the best thing for me ever when I started doing this, because if I put my lace on crooked, I can take it back off. I'm going to start on this end, tap it down. I'm going to make sure, I know it's going to be hard for you to see because there's blue here and there's blue here. The blue border is going to go just inside these little loops. I can see half the blue border. Okay? And like I said, if you put it on crooked, it is going to be easy. You can just pull it back off as long as you didn't like push it down really hard. And now we can take glue. So I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to glue down the little edges. Now don't put too much glue, because if you do, well, it dries clear, so, but it'll seep through the lace. But you want to get those little edges glued down, because otherwise they may pull off later. And remember, this glue dries clear, so if it goes through the lace, it's not a big deal. Okay. Now you may need to let it dry. Once that actually starts to tack down, we're going to do the same thing with the back half. You're going to roll it over, put a little glue on it. Okay, so this is my spine. Just a little glue on the tips of those lace pieces. I like the way that this lace folds over and gives the spine this really pretty trim. Now this one you may have to hold down until it sticks. Sometimes I'll lay my spine on the table and just let it glue everything down with the weight of the album. Okay, so that's one side. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so just flip your album over and cut your lace to fit here. Don't put it on backwards. Cut in exactly the same way. And also make sure that you put it the same way. So if this is the one that I left, this is going to go on this side, and the half piece that I cut is going to go on this side. So let me get something underneath it here. Okay, so the score tape is going about a quarter, or yeah, not a quarter, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Make sure it's down. Peel off the back. Okay, so get the score tape backing off. Make sure my lace is going the same direction as it is on the other side. Alright, this is the way I want it to go. Okay. Glue down my little tippies. Okay, so make sure you glue down this side, and when you're done, we'll move on. Alright, so back is on. Spine. And the other side. I think it turned out pretty nice. Excuse me. Alright, so go ahead and get your Dritz hook and eye out. And all you need is the eye part right now. Okay? And I'm just going to place it right in the center over here and glue it down and use a clamp to keep it on. So we're going to get a little clamp out. If you don't have a clamp, you can also use one of these clips. They work too. Get my glue, a little bit of glue right on these little circular things. Okay. Turn it over, place it on. You just want to make sure you leave enough distance here so that you can put your hook in. You don't want to put it too close, okay? Put your hook or your clamp it on there and let it dry. This is one of the other reasons why we do this first, because it's got to dry, all right? Okay, so in your paper pad you should locate this piece of paper. It has the little cabins and some cardinals in the corner, and on the other side it looks like this. Go ahead and trim off your tab at the top and throw it away. Alright, so now what I'd like for you to do is measure over 6 inches and cut. Alright, this is what you should have. Go ahead and turn this way. Measure over 8 inches and cut. Okay, so this is what you should have. Take these 2 pieces and put them in your reserve. Alright, so this is going to be page 1 and this is going to be page 2. So please set this aside and do not put it in your reserve. Get out a new piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and have you measure on the landscape over 6 inches and cut. This is what you should have. Go ahead and take the smaller piece and put it in your stockpile. Okay, so go ahead and take this one and lay it landscape. Measure over 4 1/8 and cut. This is what you should have. Now you're going to take this piece, the little bit larger one. There's one that's just a tiny bit larger, and you're going to do the same thing. Measure over 4 1/8 and cut. Alright, this is what you should have. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my reserve, the little tiny piece. These 2 pieces should be exactly the same size. So if they're not, go ahead and trim them up a little bit, but don't go crazy, because we have cardstock we're going to put on top of these. Okay? So just set these aside for a moment. So what you should have set aside for page 1 is this piece here that looks like this that we just cut, and these 2 4 1/4 or 4 1/8 by 6 pieces. So we're just going to set those right here. In your paper pad, I want you to locate this piece. It has 6 cards and some little sentiments at the bottom. Turn it over. It has a little girl with a Christmas tree and some poinsettias up here. Go ahead and trim off the top piece and throw it away. Okay, this is the side we're going to concentrate on. First of all, let's trim off these little trim pieces at the bottom, but cut this one off first. So this little pink one right here, cut this one off first, and I'll be right back. This is what you should have. Go ahead and just place this in your reserve. Now I'd like for you to cut off all 3 of these trim pieces next. I'll be right back to show you what I have. Okay, this is what you should have. Go ahead and put the trim pieces in your reserve pile. Now I would like for you to cut right between this piece off and this piece off. So cut these 3 off and cut these 3 off. I'll be right back. This is what you should have. Go ahead and take this piece and put it in your reserve. Now I would like for you to cut between all 3 of these pieces. So cut here and cut here. Okay, this is what you should have. Go ahead and keep this one and this one and put this in your reserve. Take one of the pieces that we just cut and go get your little piece with the girl and the Christmas tree. And I apologize, the guys next door are doing some work, so you're going to hear some banging. So I want you to fit this piece with the little girl and the Christmas tree so that you have an even border of white. And mine's approximately a little over 1/16 of an inch, maybe closer to 1/8, okay? And let me go ahead and zoom in. Once you have it evenly placed, I want you to take your pencil and make a mark that is the same distance here up in here. So again, I apologize, the guys are banging. So okay, so you want to make a little mark that's the same border distance, so from the top, so that everything's matching. We're going to go ahead and score along that line. Okay, place your piece of paper right along the top of the scoreboard, and what you want to do is you want to line up your little score line that you made with the closest line that you can. Doesn't matter which one it is, okay? Just line it up with a score line and go ahead and score right along. And remember, again, we don't score it overly hard, but this is 110-pound cardstock, so it's going to be a little bit harder to score down. Okay, so go ahead and score down that line. Now let's get out the other piece that we just cut, the 4 1/8 by 6, and get the piece with the church on it. And I want you to do the same thing, only this time the church is going to go up towards the top. Let me back out a little bit. Okay, so the church is going to be at the top. It really doesn't matter when we're doing the scoring, but just so you don't get confused, we're going to measure it evenly all the way around. Get a little mark where we're going to score. Okay, bring your scoreboard over, match your score mark to the nearest score, and go ahead and score right down that. Hopefully you'll notice that these should be scored in the exact same place. If they're not, it will be a little bit of a problem, so be sure that these are scored in the exact same position. So we'll go ahead and fold both of these cards, and if you'd like to, you can use your phone folder to give it a little bit of, working with the 110-pound stock is a little bit different. Okay, get out your page 1 that we cut that looks like this. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to do hidden hinges. So let me back out a little tiny bit. Okay, one hidden hinge is going to go at the top and it's going to hinge up. The other hidden hinge is going to go at the bottom and it's going to hinge down. Okay, so we need to even these out. Now if I did my math, what I would like for you to do is take this piece, the one with the top hinge, is going to go 3/4 of an inch from the top. Take your ruler and measure down 3/4 of an inch and make a mark, and 3/4 of an inch and make a mark, and then the width of this is how far we're going to cut. Now if you're not good at eyeballing, you can always measure. So you should be approximately an inch from both sides. Okay, so we're going to lay this on your top lines. Keep it as centered as you can. Zoom out a tiny bit. All right, so it should be approximately an inch from both sides, and I am. Okay, once again, 3/4 of an inch from the top. It's almost exactly an inch from both sides. Okay, and you're going to take, and I'm just going to turn it sideways to make the line. I'm going to make a line right across the top of where this hinge is, and this just happens to be the top of the piece that's hinged because that's the direction it's going to go. Okay, now I'm going to get out my cutting board. Now I don't know if you can see this, but I went ahead and lined this up on my cutting board, so you can see this is 1 inch and this is 1 inch, and that's how far away this is. So it's lined up. Okay, and do not go past the mark that you made for your hinge. So I always make a little mark going upwards so that when I cut this, I know where to start and I know where to end. I have a metal edged ruler, so it really makes it easier. So I'm going to get out my craft knife, lay my ruler right up against the line, and I'm going to cut that line from the point I started to the point that I ended. So after you've cut it, make sure that your hinge piece fits in there, and mine does. Okay, so it can hinge up and down just like that. Our second piece is going to hinge just underneath of this one. So it needs to line up perfectly with this one underneath. I'm going to place it under there, lift up the top one. Okay, so I'm going to just lift it up, place this one right underneath of it. Okay, make sure it's all lined up. Now it might stick out just a teeny bit down here, and that's perfectly fine. Mostly what you're worried about is the alignment on the right and the left. Make sure your hinge at the top is tight inside there, inside the hole. Okay, line up the second piece, right and left. Take your pencil and make sure that your hinge is down here, is folded underneath. Okay, this is the second piece, and draw a line right beneath it. That will be our second cut line for our second hinge. So this is the second cut line. We have this one for the first hinge that goes this way. This is the second cut line for the piece that comes this way. So once again, I'm going to line it up on my cutting board. Now it should be the exact same distance as the last one. And once again, I'm going to take my metal ruler edge up against this line, and I'm going to cut this line as well. Okay, so let's take the top one, the one that has a hinge at the top, okay? And you're going to take the picture with the little girl and the Christmas tree and center her. Make sure she's centered on here, all right? And go ahead and glue her down. Make sure your hinge is at the top and then the back. Your reserve, you should have this. It's blue on one side, it has a little blue curl. Turn it over and it has this little house on the back. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take the piece we just glued her down on, turn it up this way now so your hinge is at the bottom, folding towards you, up in the air. I want you to take this piece and go ahead and fit it on here. I'm going to turn it sideways so you can kind of see. Let me zoom in. Okay, so you're going to fit this on here. I'm going to keep the green at the top right corner. How about that? And that should fit pretty close to perfect. So the only thing you should have to do is trim off a tiny piece at the bottom. So you want to stay about a 1/16 of an inch away from the fold on your hinge, and go ahead and just cut straight across there. This is what I have. I'm going to take this small piece and put it in my reserve, and I'm going to take this piece again. Okay, the little girl is here. I'm going to flop it over. This little green part's going to be at the top, and I'm going to glue this down. This is the page we just cut the hidden hinge slices out of. This piece is going to go in the top, okay? So go ahead and slide it in there. Make sure it's nice and even. Okay. Okay, so go ahead and take this piece and turn it over. Hinge is at the top, okay? Make sure that it's in there nice and snug and that it's even. So you want to make sure that this is across the top. Get your glue gun if you're using one, and go ahead and tack this down. Nice and tight. Okay. Turn it over and make sure that this piece goes to the back. Okay? It will bubble up a little bit. It's okay. So let's just set this here. Go ahead and get the other side. Hinge at the bottom, going back. Okay? Get your church piece. Okay? This is going to get glued evenly on the front of this. Okay. Now, again, hinge at the bottom. Now go ahead and turn it over. Now, I always use a magnet thing to remind me, so go ahead and get out 2 of your magnets. And I want you to place one on the back of this. And I'm going to put it a little further from the edge because you know I don't like to have magnet bulge. And once again, I use score tape to adhere. I'm going to grab a little piece of score tape, kind of center it the best that I can at that point right there. Your reserve, you should have this. It's another piece of blue. On the back it has a little church. Okay, we're going to use the blue side, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to measure it with an even border all the way around. Take my pencil, and I'm going to cut off the excess. I'll be right back. This is what I have. I'm going to put this in my reserve, and I'm going to get this ready to glue on the back. And it's all blue, so there's really no direction it needs to go. And just because it's a way I like to do things, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the score tape is down tight, and I'm going to pull it off, and this will secure this paper backing up against this so it doesn't have a bulge. Okay. Go ahead and bring back your page 1, hinge at the bottom, lift this one up, and place this one in the bottom hinge that we made earlier. Hopefully it still fits. Be silly if it didn't. Make sure it measures up with this one. Okay. It's really important. You don't want it to be off center. Got them all lined up, all right? Turn it over. This is the bottom hinge that is not adhered yet. Okay. Make sure it's double check, everything's nice and straight. Okay, so go ahead and get your glue gun or your glue, whichever you use to adhere your hinges, and glue it down. Bring it back over, and you should have a hinge up and a hinge down. Now, just to be safe, go ahead and grab your other magnet. Let it find its friend. Okay, so this is going to keep that top piece from flopping around. Go ahead and get a piece of score tape and adhere that piece down so we won't forget it later. See? Ta-da! This piece will be held down by the little lace cover that we're going to make, so you won't have to worry about that one. Okay, so let's set this aside for a moment. In your reserve, you should have a piece of cardstock that we cut off from our pages earlier. It will be 8.5 by 4 and about almost 4 1/4. Okay? So, what I want you to do is go ahead and get out your Desire Victoria, and she's going to get cut out of this. So what we're going to do is take this piece here, and you're going to measure over 6 inches and cut on the landscape. This is what you should have. I'm going to go ahead and put the small piece in my stockpile, and I'm going to place Victoria as evenly as I can. So let me zoom in. Okay, so push her all the way to the top, keep her even all the way around. We can cut those little edges off, okay? And go ahead and cut her out of this piece just like this. Okay, so this is what you should have. And I'm going to try to get the little loose pieces that didn't come out of here. This does come in handy, but you do have to be kind of careful. And there is another little piece in here that sometimes I just use from here, just to kind of poke out some of those little extra pieces that didn't pop out. It isn't in there very stable, so I apologize. Okay, so I don't like to poke myself with that thing, so I don't leave it out very often. I'm going to put that away for a moment. I'm going to be using it again. Okay, so this is what you should have. And we are going to clip off this little edges. I'm not going to go, it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to do it perfectly, you can make a little line with your ruler if you prefer. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to snip off this little extra piece, and I'm going to throw this away. So, and we are going to make 2 of these exactly the same. So back in your reserve, I want you to go locate a piece of paper exactly the same size again, okay? Let me go back out. So this is again about a 4 1/4, and I'll go ahead and measure over 6 inches and cut again, and do the exact same thing. Make another one of these, okay? Put your small piece in your reserve, line up Victoria at the top again, get her nice and centered. Always use a piece of tape, and I'm going to go die cut this piece. And once again, go ahead and release the die from the paper. Clean it out. Alright, so this is what you should have. Once again, release the top portion with just snipping the edges. Okay, and go ahead and throw this little piece away. So now you should have 2 Victorias. Now these are the backing for the actual peacock paper that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the peacock paper the same way, and then we're going to put it over the top. I don't want these to tear. So, okay, so these are the paper, these are the cardstock cutouts. Go ahead and set them on top of page 1 for a moment. Get out a piece of your white peacock specialty paper, okay? And we are going to cut 2 Sophias out of this, right to the edge, okay? So go ahead and measure over, I believe 6 inches, just to double check, but it should be exactly the same. Approximately 6 inches, and cut. Okay, this is what you should have. Go ahead and put the smaller piece in your reserve and keep this piece out. Go ahead and grab your Victoria die. Place her right at the base and just put her nice and even with the end of this paper. This is in portrait. Try to leave an even space on both sides so that you don't miss the edges and not cut it all the way. And then I'm just going to take a small piece of tape, and we're going to die cut this out of this specialty paper. Do make sure that the pattern is the shiny side up. Okay, go ahead and release, and be very careful because this paper is really thin. Release Victoria from the die. Okay. I'm going to snip just a little bit off the bottom just to release it. And you go all the way to the edge, okay? Go ahead and clean out your die, and we're going to do it again. So on the same piece of remnant that we just cut the other piece out of, go ahead and place this as close to the bottom as you can of the ridge that we already have cut out. Keep it centered, and go ahead and cut another Victoria out of the specialty peacock paper. Okay, so go ahead and release her from the paper. Once again, be careful that you don't rip it. Okay, so this is what you should have. Now this might be a little tricky, so I'm going to release the top piece here just by snipping off the edges, okay? This piece, go ahead and put it in your reserve. Now, we need to cut this off, but do not cut up into your circles on your... So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to make a line to cut this bottom piece off. Okay, so go ahead and cut off where you made your line. I just made my line about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch away here. I just made a little line. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, so this is what I have. Now I was able to use my paper cutter, but I did have to hold it steady and be really careful. So now I have 2 Victorias. Now granted, this one has a little extra. Whoops, let me get this off. Get this little extra piece off. So I'm going to snip these teeny little extra pieces that are hanging over. Okay, so they pretty much have the same amount. Now I might have a little bit more on the bottom of this one than I do this one, but I can snip it off later. Don't put Victoria away too far. She'll be used a lot throughout this. Alright, so go get your 2 pieces of cardstock Victorias out. So this is what you should have. 2 out of the peacock stock and 2 out of the cardstock. We are going to glue the peacock stock right on top of the white stock, okay? Like I said, this is just to keep it sturdy. So, and it's really lacy, so it's going to take a little doing, but that's what these little metal tips are so cool for, because they're nice and slender. So I'm just going to take a little bit of glue around the outside first, okay? And I'm not putting too much because it's going to go over, but if it does, it doesn't matter, it just might get on your table. And then a little bit on each of these little lacy things. So go ahead and take the time to put a little bit of glue, as much as you can, you know, as much of these lace as you can. All right. And I'm probably going to put a paper towel down on my desk before I put it down, just to do the initial pressing. It's going to get in the holes, and that's okay. A little bit down here. All right. So I'm going to get a piece of paper towel. All right, set these ones aside. So this is my cardstock one. And this is my peacock paper one. And I'm just going to match them up perfectly and glue them on top of one another. Okay, so make sure your peacock one's on the top. That would be terrible if you didn't put the peacock one on the top. I'm going to get a little press to get some of the extra glue off. Okay, so this is going to sturdy this up. So I'm going to set this one aside and do the same thing with this one. I'm going to put a little bit of glue. Take your other peacock specialty paper piece, again, right on top. So you should have 2 cardstock covers covered in peacock paper. In your reserve pile, we cut off this cute little trimming. It's pink and it says Season's Greetings. Take one of your lace cutouts that we just made, and I want you to measure this. I want you to take this, and you can see where my cutoff to my Sophia, or I'm sorry, I keep calling her, where my Victoria is, okay? So I'm going to measure, I'm going to leave this line right against the edge of this, not the paper, but the edge of the peacock paper one. I'm going to take it down, and I'm going to measure to this end and cut this little piece off, okay? There should be enough left of the other end to do the other one. And set the one that matches with this one, bring out your other Victoria, measure again, and go ahead and snip off that little piece. I use scissors, you don't have to. Okay, and I'm just going to put this in my reserve. Now, let me get back out. You should have 2 pink pieces that are the same length as the bottom of your Victoria. What I want you to do is line it up, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch white. Here, let's zoom in. So I'm going to put some glue in the back of my little strip that I just measured, okay? Make sure it's not upside down so you can read Season's Greetings with the lace piece at the top, and leaving about a 1/16 of an inch below the holes on your Victoria, and a 1/16 of an inch right there. Go ahead and glue this one down on the first one, okay? Bring over the second one, same thing, a little bit of glue on the back. Season's Greeting I can read. Place again about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, zoom back out so you can see that I have 2 of them exactly the same. Okay, so let's zoom back out. What I need for you to do is go ahead, if you'd like to put a nice line with your ruler, you want to go ahead and slice off right at the end of your pink all the way to the edge. So go ahead and make it even. Now this is going to be a little tougher because you don't want to cut this, so if you put it in your paper cutter, don't cut off the edge of your Victoria. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to make a line on the other side. Okay, I'm going to do this on both of them. Bring the other one over. Again, getting rid of the little extra white from your cardstock on both sides. And you can always erase all that little extra pencil mark later on. Okay, so let's go ahead and go snip off those little white, both of these little white edges on both of these, okay? All right, so all those little pieces are snipped off. And I am not going to keep these, you can just throw them away. All right, so now we're going to do some scoring. So let's get our scoreboard out. So sometimes when I'm working with my scoreboard, people ask me why I have this little line down here, pencil line, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it comes off the 4. At home, it comes off my 6. What it is that whenever I'm scoring something and I want to match the score from the top to the bottom, I actually run that right along so I can actually make sure that it matches all the way down. What we want to do is score right at the bottom of this pink piece of greeting that we added to this. Now I can't put it up against, because this is not straight. So does that make sense? So I'm going to run this little pencil line right along the bottom of this. So you can see the pencil line ends on the other side of the pink, up here and up here. So when I score, it scores right along the line that I want to score on. Okay? So go ahead and score. Go ahead and take your second one. Okay, once again, line up the little pink, the bottom of the little pink line. I have my Victoria over here, and score right along the bottom of that piece as well. Okay? Now don't put your scoreboard too far away. I'm just going to set it over to the side. Go ahead and get your ruler out, and with your first Victoria, I want you to, I'm going to zoom in, get your pencil, and you're going to measure and go 3/16 and make a mark. Okay? Do that on both. So we'll get the other one, put it right on the 0 mark right below the pink. Okay, measure 3/16 and make a mark. And now we're going to score on those marks. So go get your scoreboard back out. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my, do the same thing on the other end, 3/16. Okay, now run your pencil mark up here, right on your little pencil mark that you make that goes all the way down. See? So you can see my pencil line that's on my scoreboard is going to match the pencil marks that I made for my new score. That's 3/16 of an inch away from my other score. Does that make sense, everybody? So let's do the same thing on this end. 3/16. Okay. Run my pencil mark here, 1 3/16 score. So that's always been the easiest way I could find to make something be lined up all the way down that I don't have an actual measurement for, or that I can't butt something straight up against. Because we can't butt this up against it, it'll go like this. Make sense? So go ahead and fold. And see, we're only using the cardstock to do the folding, so it's not going to be as bad as having both the specialty paper as well as the, cardstock, trying to fold both of them. Okay? So now you have a nice little hinge. Go ahead and do that on both of them. Now you have these two little beautiful lace pieces with hinges on both sides. So we're going to attach these on both sides evenly. So what I need you to do is I need you to make sure that these are the same distance apart from here to here and here to here, and that these pieces that are hinged underneath are the same distance from here to here as here to here. And then in the middle, you'll know that these match because they'll have this little half moon that'll go overlap, okay? Okay, so the tops of each of these right here should be 5/8 of an inch from the top. So go ahead and measure down 5/8 of an inch and make a little mark, okay? On both sides, on this side over here too. I'm going to use the right-hand side piece that we cut. Go ahead and pull so that the hinge and the spine is on the front and the back is not, okay? You're going to take it, place it right up against the edge, and even with your mark, okay? Make sure it's pushed tight, pinch, turn over. Don't let loose of it. If you let loose of it, you'll have to do it again. Go ahead and push it out. Get your hot glue gun and glue this side down. Okay? Go ahead and push it back so that your spine is flush with the side. Get your other one. Spine to the front. All your folds. Push it up against the other side. Measure it with your little mark. If it's measured correctly, the centers should match right here. Pinch, turn it over, and glue this one down. Push the spine back, and they should be even. In your reserve, you should have this. On one side it's blue, and on the other side it has two little tabbies. Go ahead and cut the little green piece off the top and split them down the middle. Okay, so this is what you should have. And we are going to use both of these. So I want you to make sure that they're exactly the same size. So just put them together and trim off anything that is excess. Now I just took my scissors and I put them together and I just clipped off the sides just to kind of give it a little more interesting shape. Get a magnet out, and then in your reserve you should have a small piece of the peacock paper that we used to cut out our die. So we are going to turn the peacock paper over so the shiny side is down. Okay, so we are going to put a magnet in both of these. So what I did was I went ahead and added some glue on the back, and I'm going to put the magnet on the back of it. I just put it, if you can notice, it says, I just took the words as you read them, flip it over, and I just put the magnet right about the middle-ish. Okay? Then what I want you to do is place this on the back of the peacock paper, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom and the side, like this. You see? And then we're just going to take our scissors. I kind of wish I used score tape, but go ahead. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to leave a tiny white border the same length all the way around. Okay? Oops. So, just remember the pretty part is on the other side. You might want to hold this down and let it dry. And the next one I think I'm going to use score tape. It'll just be quicker. So if you want to use score tape on both of yours and you aren't working along right with me. Okay. Before we make the second one, we need to place this one on the front. This is going to be a little bit difficult because we have to attach it to this little bit of lacing here. So first of all, I'm going to get a little piece of paper So I have a little piece of cardstock that I use whenever I'm going to glue something down. But before we do that, okay, let's do this. Take this piece that we just put together, center it right and left, top and bottom, right on here, okay? So my left hand side is overlapping my right hand side, okay? So this one is under here. So center this, lift it up, put a little bit of glue along the edge. So I'm keeping a little piece of paper under here so that I don't glue it down. Underneath. Now don't glue it to this piece. So just might want to let it sit up for a little while till it dries. Okay? So when that's dry, we'll work on the other one. So there we go. You can see that it's like right on there. It's going to be centered. Okay? It's got the magnet underneath of it, so let that dry. Set it aside. Bring out your other tag. This pink one that says Silent Night is actually going to go on this side, and this is just going to go right over the top of it so that it can have a magnet underneath of it. So what I want you to do is go ahead and turn this over, put this even so that you have your little white border. Here, so put the Silent Night, make sure it's reading this way, turn. Okay, I'm going to set it so it's evenly, has the same border all the way around on this. I'm just setting it there, okay? Take your magnet and place it, okay? Now, don't let go. We'll grab a piece of score tape very carefully without moving this. Lay your piece of score tape over the top. What's going to happen now, let me zoom back out. So that piece is sitting on there. What's going to happen is we're going to put another piece of the peacock paper on the back of this. We're going to glue it over here, okay? And that way when this comes up, this will have a magnet on this side. So go ahead and take this off now. Set this aside. This is the piece we just put the magnet on. Once again, this time I'm gonna use score tape. Put the same amount of distance all the way around this one with this is the back of the peacock paper. So I'm gonna put score tape along the whole back of this. It's just gonna be easier because it's gonna dry faster. Make sure you don't have any over the edges. So I'm gonna have to cut all the little edges off. So I covered it with score tape. Make sure the tape's all down nice and secure. Pull the backing off. Okay, now you got to be careful when you set this down because once you set it down, it's on there. So make sure that I have the even amount of white space all the way around. Press it down. And go ahead and cut this out so it has the same border. Okay. Put this piece back in your reserve so we don't have to wait for this one to dry. Alright, so this one should be dry now. Attach that to its magnet. Go ahead and put a little bit of glue on this side. Make sure your little card's in there so you don't. Okay, set it down. Now what's gluing down is the second one that's underneath. So watch, I can put my finger on it. Make sure it's straight. So you won't be able to pick this up until it's glued down. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing my fingernail on it to pull this one up. I'm just double checking that that's actually kind of on there straight, and it looks pretty good. Let that dry and we'll move on to the next step. So once that's dry, this should stay nice and neat. So this will hold it closed. Got some cute little, and this magnet will keep this one from flopping open. These can go either way you want them to, by the way. Look at this. So you can have the blue on top or the pink. There we go, page 1 is done. So go ahead and turn it over and get it ready to put score tape on. So you want to start your score tape by making a frame all the way around the outside. Stay as close to the edges as you possibly can. Don't go over though. Okay. I'm going to put one a little closer to this edge for these extra things that we have going on here. So we're going to put a little bit of extra on both sides. One down the middle, where we already have our magnet, and short, and short. Okay. Now we are not going to place this in until we have finished page 2. And anytime you've done any of the tutorials with Shellie or I, you know that we don't place in page 1 until we place page 2 because we need to line them up. The first page on the inside of the album is bigger than the second page as far as the width and height is. So this would be uneven. So we're going to just leave the score tape on here for now and set this aside and start page 2. And just as a reminder, you should have this set aside for page 2, so leave it set aside. Okay, so in your reserve you should have this. Window, window, blue, okay? Turn it upside down, okay? And measure over 8 inches and cut, so you have this little piece left. So this is what you should have. Go ahead and put your little window piece in your reserve. Take this piece and measure over 6 inches and cut. Okay, this is what you should have. And put this small piece in your reserve. Turn this over to the blue side, and this is going to be the back of page 2. So get out a fresh piece of cardstock. On the landscape, I would like you to measure over 6 3/4 inches and cut. This is what you should have. Put the smaller piece in your stockpile. Turn this landscape, measure 8 inches and cut. This is what you should have. Take the small piece and put it in your stockpile. Okay, turn it back, and we're going to score. So let's get out our scoreboard. At 6 inches, and we are in the portrait, at 6 inches we want to score. And at 6 1/8 we want to score. So 6 inches and 6 1/8 score. Go ahead and fold. I'm folding everything all the way back. So both of my score lines are in the back. And it's on the right hand side. The score and the hinge are on the right hand side. You had set aside this piece right here with the cardinals and the little cabin on it. We're going to fit this on the front of this. And I'm going to cut this side and this side off. So I'm going to take it, I'm turning it sideways. I'm measuring so that I have a 1/16 of an inch white border. So it looks like I'm going to be cutting off a tiny bit obviously on this side and a tiny bit on this side. So I'm just going to make my little marks where I'm going to cut, and I'll go cut those pieces off. I'll be right back. Okay, so those little pieces that I cut off are really tiny. So I am not going to keep these little teeny pieces. Measure it up to make sure it fits, and go ahead and glue it down. Make sure when you're gluing it down that your hinge is on the right. Even all the way around. Go ahead and get out a couple magnets. Just flip this straight over, hinge on the left. Take one magnet, and I'm not going to place it too close to the edge, because I just want to make sure it doesn't make a bulge. And just go ahead and glue a magnet right off to the right here. Or put a score tape over it. Okay, it's up to you. Set the other magnet just aside right now on top of the back of page 2. So we're going to set this aside for just a moment because we're going to go get the paper that we're going to cover the back of this with. In your paper pad you should have this beautiful blue and almost lime green stripes on one side with the cabin, and on the other side it looks like this. Go ahead and cut the tab off the top and throw it away. With your paper exactly this direction, I want you to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. This is what you should have. Take the piece with the cabin and the berries and put it in your reserve. Okay, so now you have this piece. Bring this one back over that we just glued the cabins and cardinals on one side. Make sure your hinge is on the left hand side. Okay, take this piece and go ahead. I'm just going to turn it sideways. It should measure across pretty close. You're going to measure on this end. Make a little mark, okay, so that you have a little white border at the top, all the way around, and go ahead and trim off the top piece. This is what you should have. Take the smaller piece and put it in your reserve. Again, turn this piece. Now I have a tiny little piece of a berry, and I'm actually going to put that little berry in the bottom left corner, but we're not going to put this down yet because we're going to put a pocket on here,